Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Gaming Pubcast. We're back Tuesday, so we obviously met up. Can't remember now. Was it Friday? And now we're meeting up again on Tuesday. So,
I only just released the audio podcast yesterday, so so we're cramming in 2 episodes to catch up a bit.
Yeah, we'll be back on track after today's episode. But see, when we spoke last time, there was a bit of a sort of break from when we did one episode to the other. So there was quite a few games that you had played in that time. Duncan, I'm going to ask you if you played anything since we last spoke on Friday. Or was it just still the same games, just a little bit more?
I've played a bit more of Baldurs Gate 3. I've interrupted an ogre and a bugbear having intimate time, which was quite an awkward explanation to my wife when she would ask me what I was laughing about. So it's a game where you can find anything and react however you want, kind of thing. There's various ways how you can react. I unfortunately had to kill both of them in my playthrough, but so it's I think from what I've read with people playing online, it's a different game for everybody. You get the same setups, and everybody's takeaway from whether they were, whether they talked their way out of something, whether they bought their way out of something, whether they just killed everything, is all completely different. And I still don't think I've scratched the surface though, but yeah, it's deserving of its high praise so far.
You're enjoying the game and
yes,
unique experience, and by the sounds of it, for a lot of people.
And I've been doing a bit of retro playing as well. I've been playing Pikmin 2 because I completed Pikmin 1 long ago. Actually, it was within the last couple of months, and I've got a Pikmin 2, which is the same, obviously, where you use Pikmin and you have up to 100 of them following you, and you have some that are fireproof, some that are you can throw higher, some that you can, but you have to get them to do jobs and lift things, and the whole premise is that you're in a miniature version of our world, or well, you are miniature on Earth, but this has dungeons almost that you have to get to the end level to keep all your loot. Whereas the original one was just open worlds. You have the open worlds as well, but you then have dungeons that you have to complete to unlock different abilities. So, in a way, it makes it, I don't know, feel less big, but equally you've got the above world, the open world bit, which is just like the original. So, yeah, I like it. I'd highly recommend if people want to get the Pikmin collection on the Switch. It's an interesting.
Only played Pikmin 3.
Yeah, I haven't played 3 yet. I'm hoping to go into that next. Pikmin 1 was quite hard because you had a certain.
Is that on the Switch collection or?
The Pikmin collection is 1, 2, and 3, and then 4 has obviously just come out. So I haven't played 4 at all yet.
Okay.
But
so you will get to enjoy 3 then.
It's quite a casual puzzle game. I like that. I don't like anything that's. I like it taxing, but not too taxing. I like it where you can get a little bit further every time. I mean, I do like a good puzzle game, basically. I don't know if you like. I played another one recently. It's on Game Pass called Maquette. Did we talk about that before? I think we did. I think we mentioned it. It's to explain. It's quite confusing. It's a first-person puzzler, so you're in a model, or you have a model of a world in front of you that's like small, but you are also in that world. So if you get moving anything on that model, then you move it outside of the building that you're in. So the model is it sounds confusing, but once you play it, it's mind-bending but logical. If you ever played Superliminal as well, it's that kind of mind bending to do with sizes and how you work sizes out. Very very good game, very good puzzle. Gets the brain working, but equally, if you don't get it, it doesn't stop you. It doesn't tax you for taking too long to work it out. Excuse me.
Fair enough. Yeah. So myself, not much gaming. I've revisited. So I started again. Wind Waker, Zelda Wind Waker, because I got the HD version on my Wii U. So the only reason I got Wii U is because of all the Xbox titles you could get on it.
Nice.
At the time I got it, you could get every single Zelda title, but obviously since Tears of the Kingdom had come out on the Switch, that was no longer the case. But I restarted Wind Waker the other day.
Nice.
On the
Which is the best?
So I don't know if you've ever played Wind Waker, but
I haven't played
my
Wind Waker.
personal favourite is Twilight Princess. It's my personal favourite just because the dungeons are, I think they have the best dungeon. Like the Zelda, the newer ones, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, are less away from, well, they do have like dungeons of such, but they've gone away from that concept where it's open world, whereas the older ones are more linear. You have a storyline you need to go to, but you go through but then you have your dungeons where you have a boss at the end, which some people love the new version, some people don't love it so much because it's gone away from what Zelda was. I just think, Zelda's evolved. They've obviously found a popular formula. The Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the two most popular games they've ever released in the Zelda franchise. So don't think they're going to go back. But yeah, for me, it's Twilight Princess just because
Twilight Princess
the dungeons and the bosses on there.
Isn't the one with the cell shading? Which one's that? The cell shading graphics, like the cartoony type graphics. Which one's that? Is that?
Oh, that's Wind Waker.
Is that Wind Waker? Okay.
Yeah, that's the one with D. So that got really criticised. That came out on the GameCube early 2000. It got really criticised at the time because everyone was saying about its cartoony graphics, and it was so in response to that they released Twilight Princess, which would then come back to your more traditional Zelda game. But now, sort of as time has gone by, people appreciated Wind Waker a lot more, and actually it's aged really well. It's like those graphics, even if you go on the GameCube version, to a certain extent, but for GameCube games, it's held up quite well in terms of like graphics. Obviously, on the Wii U, it's a HD sort of remakes, so pretty good. But yeah, I mean, my two favorites are Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and they were both released on the same console. So, which was
I've got to say the only one I've ever completed is the first one on the Game Boy. That's the only Zelda I've ever completed. I've never actually completed a Zelda. I've played a lot of them, tried a lot of them. I've just never ever finished them except for that one on the Game Boy. And that was because I was probably about 10 years old when it came out and had no other games. As you do.
But other than that, I haven't played anything, Duncan. I mean, just, looking at the news, Duncan, I mean, again, not much on there, but before we just came on the call, I was having a look, and it looks like Netflix have launched, and it's at the very early, it's like a beta stage at the moment. But they've launched a cloud gaming service, limited beta form.
Well, they've been on
2 games on it.
Yeah, they've been on a bit of a developer purchase the last few years. They bought the developer of Oxenfree. So I think you said that the one of the games.
There's 2 games
on there is Oxenfree.
First party title, Oxenfree from Night School Studio, and then they got Mole, who's gem mining arcade game, Mining Adventure. So
I think Oxenfree 2, I think you can buy it, maybe, I don't know, but you can also, if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can play it for free on phones, I believe, maybe on TV. So I think this is their way of getting gaming onto every home TV, really. So if you can, if you can play a game just by clicking as easy as watching Stranger Things, then it's going to be fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. I fancy playing a game instead of watching TV. And
yeah. I mean, I was reading the article and it said the controller would be your smartphone at the moment, but you can also use keyboard and mouse as well if you're watching Netflix on your computer. It's quite limited at the moment in terms of who can access it, but I guess we'll see in terms of if it takes off or not. But yeah, I mean, it would be convenient because if I want a game at the moment, then I've got to go where my PS5 is. If I wanted to game in my living room, I'd have to drag it down or whatever. Whereas, see if it was on a Netflix, you could just easily, just as you would if you wanted to watch, like you said, Stranger Things or something like that, just turn it on and it's there. See, Google had a go of it, didn't they, with Google Stadia, which didn't really, success.
I think. Have you used much cloud gaming yourself?
I did when I had the Series S. I would, instead of downloading a game and taking up storage space, I would try the streaming, and it worked all fine for me. But I had, where I used to live, because this was my old house, I did have like Virgin internet, which is really fast. It was like 500 megabytes per second.
Yeah, I have the Virgin here, although
so I don't know what it would be like on. Yeah, I mean, I have BT here, which is like the quickest one I can get, but it's not. It's like only about 70 megabytes per second, which. So I don't know what it would be like if I tried streaming on.
It should work. I've streamed on my phone over my. I haven't done it for a long time because if you do it with your internet, your phone connection, you're not going to have the best time. But I have successfully played a game just with my 5G connection, and that's obviously up to, I think at that point I think I was on about maybe 30 megabit. So it wasn't particularly fast, it wasn't slow, but you're meant to be able to do it for about 10 megabit. But I think Stadia failed because they had a purchase model. I think everybody, when they announced it, everybody presumed that they were going to have a Netflix-style model of pay us £10 a month, £15 a month, and you can have all these games. And they probably would have had like xCloud or Xbox Cloud Gaming and Game Pass originally didn't have that many games when it was in its test phase. It only had about 8 games originally, and they just built it up and up and up and up until they released it fully, and it had loads of games. And I think if Google had done that in some form, they would have had a much more successful time. But they didn't. They had it purchased, and people weren't willing to pay £60, $60 or whatever for something which was basically a renting a service, like a streaming service, which you could only play basically at home because people didn't have that much data usage on their phones when they were out and about. So yeah, I think if Netflix have it free as part of their subscription and it works on TVs, it works on your phone, it works on your games consoles, I think they'll be successful, whatever they offer. I mean, at the moment, you could get about 10 to 15 mobile games. I don't know if they're available via PC, but they definitely are. I'm not a Netflix subscriber anymore, but I was until a couple of months ago. And yeah, I love the games that were available. They were really good. So fingers crossed for them.
I didn't know. I'm no longer a Netflix. I stopped a couple of months ago as well, actually. But I didn't know they even had any mobile games. So that's news to me. But it'd be good, interesting to see sort of.
If you open up the mobile app, if anyone's
only,
listening that doesn't know, open up the mobile app and there's a game section at the bottom. Tap that and you can actually install them, or you can install them from the Google Play Store, and then just log in to your Netflix account through that. It's easy as that.
It's easy as that. In terms of like game releases, I haven't really been much out. I thought Quake 2 has had a remaster. I don't know if you played if you're a fan of the Quake series, or have you played any original ones?
I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I was around as an adult pretty much when Quake was first out. I think it was 94 kind of thing, 93. I don't know, whatever it was. I was probably a teenager at the time.
It's 90s, wasn't it?
And so I played it. I never completed it because I was never very good at it. But I definitely had fun because it was the first big name 3D. Because until then, most games, first-person shooter games, you couldn't look up and down. It was, I think, the first big one to do it was Jedi Knight. No, not Jedi Knight. Dark Knight Force. I can't remember the Star Wars one anyway. The Star Wars first-person shooter, and then Quake came along. It was fully 3D, and it was like, wow. So Quake and Quake 2 were fantastic games for when they came out. Whether they are still good, but they're
Doom
not.
Was quite early, wasn't it?
When you've got 2016 Doom and all your Call of Duties and all that kind of thing, are they as good as? There's a bit of rose tinted specs, I think, but it is still a good game. Not saying it's one that isn't very good. It is a good game, but it's I will probably try the remaster, but I'm not somebody who will. If you've never played Quake, go out and play it. It's a great game. But you'll probably, if you like first-person shooters,
while you were. So while you were talking, I did have a look to see what was the first ever 3D shooter, and it was Wolfenstein 3D. Apparently.
But that was still one. That was still one that you could only do this. You couldn't look up and down because that was the prequel to Doom.
Okay, so you could do.
So I mean, Wolfenstein
1993.
You can play Wolfenstein 3D or a level of it in Wolfenstein the new versions. There's one place where you can go up to a bed or something, and when you you click to go to sleep in the bed, and you wake up in a version of Wolfenstein 3D. So it's quite funny. It's quite good. You get to kill Hitler at the end of it. So if you want to kill Hitler,
it's always a good thing.
One of the games are there. There was there's also an RPG that's coming out. I think it's called Sea of Stars. It's coming out on Game Pass. It's a day one release on Game Pass. I think I remembered. I haven't played it or seen much about it except for things that are very good. So if people like your JRPG, pixel graphics, that kind of thing, I think it's definitely one to look out for. It's out in the next couple of weeks. There's also the asymmetrical horror game, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I think pretty much if you like Dead by Daylight, it will be one that will probably have virtually nobody playing it in about a month, because it's by the same people who made Friday the 13th, but they lost that license, and so they're releasing Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so I think the fact that Friday the 13th didn't fully reach its potential means this won't fully release its potential. Even coming to Game Pass, I don't think it will. So good luck to them though.
I was going to ask about obviously from Quake 2 as a remaster. What your sort of thoughts are on remasters? Do you like remasters, or would you just prefer
Well, there's the
new
big
games?
debate about remasters and remakes, isn't there? Remasters, if they're, what's that, where they're better resolution, slightly better frame rate, but it's the same game, isn't it? And remake is when they completely redo it. So you have some remasters like the GTA trilogy, and that went disastrously wrong. So it had rain that meant that people couldn't actually see anything that they were doing. There was frame rate problems. There was the graphical problems and all sorts. So they've got to be a game that's really good. I can imagine that you'd love a lot of the Zeldas to be remastered.
Yeah, I mean, see, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were HD. I don't know if they would be classed as remasters on to the Wii U. So see the GameCube version, but with HD graphics. So that was good. I know a lot of people want them to be put onto the Switch, which I don't think they're going to do. I mean, I don't know why they would do that when it's just only the generation before when they redid it. So yeah, I personally like. Obviously, it does depend on the game. I know Metal Gear Solid is going to be getting remasters, aren't they?
Yes.
The collection at the end of September, I think, is going to come out. I do like the Metal Gear Solid game, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But yeah, I mean, it is dependent. Like I think it's like Resident Evil. It seems to be like the Resident Evil 2, which seemed to like start that trend, and then they all started doing it because they saw how successful Resident Evil 2 was, and then we had like Crash Bandicoot did it, didn't it, with the insane
so those
trilogy or whatever.
Those are remakes, aren't they? Where they've completely redone. Like Resident Evil is a remake, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And even the Crash Bandicoot one, I think, was a remake. But oh my god, that game though just reminded me of how hard it actually was. I remember thinking, "Oh, this was quite easy," and then I was reminded that actually Crash Bandicoot was not very easy. As you went later in the game, it's a really hard game. But yeah, the Resident Evil ones, it's meant that you've had better controls, you've had better action, it's more accessible, and it's scarier, which is the point of those games. Whereas something like the GTA trilogy, it's like, what? Why not just put out basically a ROM of the game that you own in an emulator, and people have already made it 60 frames, 120 frames per second. People have already made it so it's pretty. People have already made it so there's mods to change the controls. Why don't you just use them, pay those modders some money, and but no, they do, I don't know, God knows what, and they completely mess it up. And yeah, so
I've got some definitions here. So a remaster is an improvement in the visuals of a game without interfering with its other aspects. A remake is a redesign of a game while retaining its key characters and story elements. And then you've got a reboot. It's a new game with a fresh storyline, including some elements of the original game. And then lastly, you've got a port, which is transferring and optimizing a video game to run on another platform. Which
so
I know.
So
I know
a remaster
like
is your HD versions. Yeah, a remake is your Final Fantasy VII and your Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4. So a reboot would be your Tomb Raider, original Tomb Raider, and Tomb Raider Shadow Rise of the Tomb Raider, and a port would be Knights of the Old Republic. They did a port, didn't they, to other formats?
Yeah,
where you could literally play it on your phone.
Super Mario All Stars, when that released on the Switch, got criticized because it was just, everyone thought it was going to be like a remaster of Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and was the Galaxy ones on there as well. But actually, it was just a port, so it was like the 64 graphics, but you could just play it on a Nintendo Switch. So there was some criticism.
That's a shame because even the Switch is capable of doing 60 frames a second, I believe. What is the screen? Is the screen 60 frames per second, or on the Switch? I'm not entirely sure.
I think maybe the OLED, maybe.
Okay.
Because they brought up their more. I mean, preferably, I would prefer them just to release new games rather than like remasters and remakes. So, like with Resident Evil, I know we got Resident Evil Village came out the other year, but in the time they released sort of 2, 3, I think they've also released Resident Evil 4 now, haven't they? They could have just released like new Resident Evils for people to play, but I guess it's easier for them to do.
Okay, so apparently the Switch is 720p 60 frames per second. So yes, you can get 60 frames per second. So yeah, something that's from the N64. There's no excuse really that they couldn't release something, in HD and high frame rate. In docked mode, games can get up to 1080p and 60 frames per second. So even though it is quite old hardware nowadays, I mean, a Mario 64 remaster should be able to be quite fluid and quite good.
Last, I think, Duncan, just is on this day. So having a look at a couple of.
I think you mentioned there's quite a big one, isn't there? That was 34 years ago.
Yeah,
yesterday.
From yesterday, so the 14th of August, 1989, the Genesis or Sega Mega Drive came out, which was
34 years ago.
First console that I remember playing, the console that got me into gaming. So so obviously a lot of good memories on.
So hang on, can we just clarify that you weren't alive at that point?
I wasn't. No, I wasn't alive. I was alive in November 1989, so a couple of months after. But
you were probably a celebration of the announcement of the Sega Mega Drive. I mean, I would have been 11 at that point, so I was a child, and because my parents did not like gaming, there was never a chance in a million years that I was going to get one. But I did have a friend who had one, so I did play out of all the 16-bit consoles. I did play the Mega Drive the most. Everything from Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter to Star Control and Streets of Rage, all those. So good. But 34 years ago.
I know. By the looks of it, the game that launched with it, because it's got the same date as the date of the Genesis, was Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, which I did enjoy the Alex Kidd game. I remember playing, like, it was a little platform game, but you would also do paper.
If I remember rightly, there was
rock, paper.
Yeah, there was one of the one of the Master Systems actually had it built in, didn't it? So you could just power it on without a cartridge in, and it would play Alex Kidd. I think the original one.
Right.
I don't know whether that was the original Master System or one of the follow-ups, but yeah, you could turn on the Master System without a cartridge in, and it had Alex Kidd built in. So I don't know whether the Mega Drive one was maybe a sequel, or maybe it's a remaster.
Who knows? Yeah, bring it on to that subject. I saw just looking at the other games on there. So 25 years ago yesterday, Mission Impossible came out on the Nintendo 64. I don't know if you ever tried that game. It does live up to its title. It is like pretty impossible.
Well, it was a like we had in the last episode, a game from a movie. So I can imagine probably not the best.
I could have mentioned it. It was terrible. Yeah, it was. I remember trying to play the first level, and it was just it not like it was
Pretty
difficult
impossible.
but it was in terms of like you just didn't know where to go. So like you'd be some place and you're like, I don't know what am I meant to do here? I've killed everyone on the level, and you're just like walking around trying to find something. So imagine. I mean, I was pretty young when I was playing it, so maybe if I tried it again, it wouldn't be so bad. Or if I had some sort of guide or something to help me, then maybe it wouldn't be as bad as that. And another game I know, which isn't a movie, but Futurama, that came out 20 years ago on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, which
Quite relevant as well because it's been rebooted on Disney Plus. So there's a new series out on Disney Plus now.
Okay.
I never played the game. Was it actually any good?
I did. Yeah, I really enjoyed the game. Yeah, so I mean, I can't remember. I don't know if it was like critically acclaimed or not, but my personal, there was like you were the different characters in the game as well, which was good. It's.
Well, if you had, if it was anything like the Simpsons 3D games, so you got Hit and Run, Road Rage, those three, and also the 2D ones from the Mega Drive and SNES days, the basically the Turtles in Time kind of Streets of Rage kind of game. The Simpsons one, that was really good as well. So Simpsons games, there was a lot of them, but there were some really good ones, and the 3D ones were particularly good. Yeah,
Simpsons Hit and Run was good. The Simpsons. Which was the one where
Hit and Run was like Grand Theft Auto.
Was that Crazy Taxi?
Road. That was Road Rage.
So that's the one I really liked. The Hit and Run, Road Rage. Yeah, there was like a Simpsons skateboard one, wasn't there, which wasn't that good. And then Simpsons Wrestling. I don't know if you ever. That was on the PlayStation.
I had a couple of
which wasn't the best game. But,
I had a couple of Simpsons games on the Game Boy, and they were incredibly hard. I had Bart versus or Bart at Camp Mutant or something like that, and it was really hard because the collision detection was not great. But that's going back probably 30 years, and not the best, but strangely compelling. But no, if you're going to play a Simpsons game, play Hit and Run.
The wrestling game, because it was. Yeah, I would agree with that. But the wrestling game was wrestling, but you would fight one character and then you'd go on. The last character was Mr. Burns, if I remember rightly. And it was really difficult, surprisingly enough. You wouldn't think it would be difficult. Like what Smithers would get involved as well, so he'd start trying to help him.
Excellent.
And it was a bit of like a jump and the difficulty, because up to that point it wasn't too bad, and then all of a sudden it was. Yeah, so
I think I remember. I don't think I played it.
I remember. I also had this is in the 90s as well. Like a very one of the first PCs I had, and I had a Simpsons game on that. Was it's like when you could go into Springfield. It's like I think it was called like Virtual Simpsons Virtual something. Might be Virtual Springfield, I think. And then you could like go around Springfield, so you go in like Ned's house if you wanted to.
It wasn't really. There wasn't really much of a game to it, was there?
No. It was as like a child who enjoyed Simpsons. It's quite enjoyable because it made you feel like you were
in the cartoon. Yes.
As an adult, I wouldn't want to play it as an adult because you want to have some sort of like.
No, I do remember that one. Yeah, and yes, although there wasn't much of a game, you did back in those days. Having something that looked like a cartoon was just wow. Whereas now, people refer to if people don't like graphics, they'll go, "Oh, they're a bit cartoony." So, yeah. yeah, that's okay. Back when I was little, that was amazing. Yeah, the fact that you could control a cartoon, amazing. But that goes on to things like Dragon's Lair and Space
a
Ace.
cartoon that you would watch as well. Yeah, so it's more of an experience than a game, I'd say. But yeah, I've been looking at the other games. Virtual Cop Elite Edition came out on PlayStation 2. Don't know if you're a Virtual Cop fan.
I was more of a time crisis. More of a time crisis.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm assuming it is like one of those where you get the gun. And
on the PlayStation 2, I don't think was there a light gun PlayStation 2 because I don't know. Because I had my favourite shooter game ever was Point Blank. I think it was a bit like Mario Party but with guns.
And I used to love that game. Yeah,
fantastic.
Like the egghead sort of.
Yeah, and there was about 8 small games, and then you'd have the final big game, and you had to try and complete that. And it was a high score game, so it was great to play with friends. And it was a couch co-op game or a couch versus game, which back in those days were the best kind of games. And loved it, absolutely loved it. And I also worked
playing that with my
Come.
My friends from. I was going to say I just remember playing it with my friends from primary school. We'd be playing like trying to shoot the chickens or whatever in the house or whatever.
Yeah.
All like stuff come across the screens and you have to like avoid the bombs, don't you?
I worked in a bowling alley and we had Point Blank, and so after the bowling alley closed and we were closing up, we were allowed to put all the games on free play. So you sit there and trying to beat each other's scores. So good days, good times.
Did you ever play the House of Dead? The House of the Dead?
Yeah, really good. I think there's been reboots and remasters and all sorts of versions of that. Obviously, the problem is nowadays is that with modern LCD, LEDs and whatnot, light guns don't work. So you have to have if you have old versions, whether it's the Joy-Cons or the Mega Drive, what was the Mega Drive called? The Virtua Con? Something like that. But anyway, if you have these old versions, you can't use them on modern TVs. So some people will buy all the kit for secondhand and for loads of money, and then find out they can't actually play it. So
did not know that. So it's good to know.
Yeah, so don't go buying light guns unless you're going to buy a CRT computer.
Is that why no consoles do light guns anymore?
There's.
It just seems to stop, didn't it? Like
that's why you have to have a light bar over for the Wii, and for your for any location based movement kind of thing. Well, actually, the location base obviously doesn't count, but for the light guns, for movement and aiming.
It's a victim of modern gaming. The light gun. I used to love to shoot in games, but anyway,
they were fantastic.
Unless there's anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've managed to drag out, seeing as we only did an episode a couple of days ago. I shall endeavour to get much more to do with Baldur's Gate 3 by the next episode, and more of an in-depth view of it, other than the fact that I just watched a giant female ogre having sex. It's definitely not for children. Baldur's Gate 3.
If there's anything you take from this episode, it's that Baldur's Gate 3 isn't for younger audiences. So. But no, I was going to say, definitely an planned episode, but we spoke about a lot of things. Remasters, Simpson games, light guns.
Yeah, if anyone's
Sega
listening,
Overdrive.
tell us
Oh,
your
okay.
favourite remaster. Tell us why we're wrong about something.
Remake.
We'll happily argue with you on Facebook and whatnot. No, we won't. We love other opinions, and there's probably ones that we've forgotten, or things that we think are
Probably
good
those,
that you
yeah.
think
And
about.
if there's any games out there where you think,
What deserves a remaster?
if there's any game out there as well where you think that deserves a remaster, that's what I'm literally about to say, then let us know, because
Definitely.
I'm sure there's plenty. When you look at what's coming out and you think, why have they made that game and still haven't made a remaster of Time Splitters or something? Or I was going to say GoldenEye, but they kind of did, didn't they? So, but then, yeah,
But then a
Virgin
fully
on the Game Pass,
3D with a dual stick controller, just basically a regular shooter. But would that be boring? That's a discussion for another episode, I think.
Right.
Would modern controls on old games work or not? So, right. But yeah, that's all good for me. So,
all good at my end as well. Thank you, Duncan, and I'll see you in about a week.
excellent.
That's
See
it.
you soon.
Bye.